Show. It's the Baaaaahbra Show. Coming your way with a smile today. Down the humorous path with a lark and a laugh. It's the Baaaaahbra Show. The Baaaaahbra, the Baaaaahbra, the Baaaaahbra Show. Welcome to Humorous Adventures with Baaaaahbra.
Well, welcome again to the Humorous Adventures with Baaaaahbra. Today's show is about, I believe things happen for a reason. And I think when you're a college freshman, you're drawn to certain subjects, maybe by a certain professor. I had a psychology professor when I was a freshman who was very animated when he did his lectures. As a matter of fact, he would tell the tales of Jack and the Beanstalk, and then he'd retell it and say, this is what Freud thought what the beanstalk meant. And I'll let your imagination run with you there. However, even though I had a love for psychology, my mother said, get your degree in education because you can always fall back on it. And you know what? I've always listened to my mother, and it's always been right. Thanks, Mom. So I get my degree in education, and then once I graduated, as I've mentioned in earlier shows, since my parents moved to a warmer climate in La Jolla, I moved to La Jolla. And I got a studio apartment, and you know, I had saved some money back east. It was great. But then I kept withdrawing money, and I couldn't go to school full time and keep the La Jolla studio. So I had to go and get a job that would let me leave on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 10. Okay, so the first interview, I made sure that I had the best suit, I was looking good, and got there, left the house early just to make sure that if I was late, I'd still be there in plenty of time. It turned out that day it was like a torrential rainstorm, and yes, I got lost. So as I'm at a stoplight this way, cars were stopped that way, and I thought, here's my chance. I'll roll down the window and ask this guy, to help me out with the directions. As I roll down my window and stick my head out to ask this guy for directions, their light goes, he goes, and then this big truck comes into this big puddle and just splashes my face full of dirty water. Thank you. Talk about first impressions when you go to an interview. Well, needless to say, I didn't get that job. Okay, onward to job interview number 2. Once again, this job I really wanted, and I wanted to make sure I had the perfect suit, the silk blouse, the heels, the hair. I shopped for everything, found everything. And then the shoes, I found the perfect white high heel shoes. However, they happened to be defective at the toe on the right shoe. The elastic wasn't right. Well, I know shoemakers can fix that. So I buy the shoes because I had to have them, bring them to a shoemaker. He stitches up the elastic. They're as good as new. Great. The day of the interview, I get all dressed up. I'm looking good, I think. I leave early in plenty of time, and I get to the location. I sign in, I sit at the lobby, and just as I sat down, my shoe pops. And I couldn't believe it. What am I supposed to do? How am I even supposed to walk up those steps? And I had to think quick, and I thought, stapler. So I asked the receptionist for a stapler. She gives it to me. I staple my shoe. It worked. At least I can walk up the steps now. So Maggie, the interviewer, comes downstairs, and we go up, and we start the interview. And she's asking me questions, and I'm answering. And she's asking me questions, and I'm answering. But then all of a sudden, I just felt that she was staring at my right shoe. And I felt compelled to tell her, you know, I feel like you're staring at my right shoe, and I just have to tell you that, yeah, I bought a defective shoe and I had to staple it in your lobby. All of a sudden, she had this funny look on her face. But, you know, we continued on with the interview. She's asking me questions, I'm giving her answers. And then, all of a sudden, I'm feeling like she's staring at my hair. Now, at that time, I did not blow dry my hair. I let it dry naturally, and I'm thinking to myself, gee, she could be looking at me and think I haven't washed my hair in about a year. Well, so I felt once again to be compelled to say, you know, I feel like you're staring at my hair, and I just want you to know it's wet. Well, once again, she's got this really funny look on her face. And I'm thinking to myself, you know how cartoons are where there's this bubble? And I'm thinking, yeah, I have this job all right. But you know, we continue on, and she's asking me questions, and I'm giving her answers. And then the interview was over, and she said to me, this was a Friday, I'll let you know on Monday whether you got the job or not. So I leave, and I'm thinking, yeah, I got that job. I get home on Friday, and this was before answering machines, okay? And my phone is ringing and ringing. And I had gone on other interviews, and I didn't want to refuse any other job before I heard from Maggie on Monday. So my phone would ring, and then I would call my friends and say, are you calling me? Are you calling me? Because I'm not answering my phone. I need to wait to hear from Maggie on Monday. Monday comes, phone rings. I pick it up. It's Maggie. She said, I got the job. Well, if you could have seen my face, I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it, but I was very happy. And it was only till years later, after working with her, that I said, you know, that interview was so bizarre. Why did you ever hire me? And she said, that's just it. You were so bizarre, I knew you'd fit right in. Now, again, my title is, I feel like things happen for a reason. If I didn't do the last thing, like get my degree in education, I really wouldn't have been qualified to get this job, and then to follow how I even got into sales, which I'll tell you in a little bit. I'm not into poetry that much, but I believe that I took the road not less traveled by Robert Frost. Now that I got this job, it was with computers. I really wasn't thinking about working with computers at all. What I was thinking was teaching. But now that I had my degree in education, and now I'm working with a company that is teaching me new computer technology so I can teach to others, I thought this is great. Because I loved working with kids. I just didn't want to make them stay after and punish them. So getting to work with computers, it's a whole new terminology. And I would be doing some tech support over the phone, and I would be talking to somebody, and I learned never assume anything. I would say, open up a new window, meaning in Windows, and I would hear them opening up a window and then coming back to the phone. Or, if you load a program and then the computer screen says press any key, they'd say, where is the any key? And I'd be like, oh, I can't believe it. But now that I got into computers, I felt that this was really for me. Now, in the demo room, when you set up different computers to show people how the software works, usually the demo room, or at least this demo room in this particular office, was dimly lit. And I was working with a fellow employee to pull in the cables and make sure the equipment was working. And so he is on the floor, and I'm in the back, And he says, "Is it in?" And I'm like, "Well, I think it's in, but I can't feel it." Now, people were walking by, and if you didn't know what we were doing, you might think we were doing something else. So it was kind of pretty embarrassing. Another time, because another computer teacher quit, I was sent to learn basic programming, and I'm sitting in the classroom, and the professor gets up and says, "You know, I don't feel right unless I do 100 lines of coke every night." And I'm thinking to myself, this is a professor standing in front of all these people and saying he doesn't feel right unless he does 100 lines of coke every night. What he said was, "I don't feel right unless I do 100 lines of code every night." Now, working again with a computer company, there was a video that they wanted to do with a scanner. And so they hired me as the actress, but only for my hand. And basically what the video was a picture of my hand going in, maybe putting in a piece of paper, my hand coming away, my hand pressing the start button. So they actually had makeup people just doing the one hand with the nails and checking out the lighting just to make sure it looked right. So when I played this video for my family, my brothers once again said, "Oh, put that hand on pause. You didn't even have to tell us that was your hand. We would know that hand anywhere." If anybody wants to see that video, I think I have it somewhere. Now, a lot of people say to me, "How did you ever get into sales?" Because I went from the love of psychology to listening to my mother saying, "Get your degree in education," to then doing tech support over the phone. And then what I was doing was going around with the salespeople, doing all the demonstrations, and also doing training for people once they bought the software. Well, the VP of the company said to me, he said, "Barbara, listen, I see what you do. You're pretty much selling the software for these sales guys. Why don't you go into sales?" I was like, oh, no. That's scary. You know, I don't want to do it. But the one thing that I so appreciate is how people may see something in you that you don't see yourself and give you a net to fall back on just to make you feel safe to take that next step forward. And I've had those people in my life all along. So the VP said to me, "Listen, you try sales, and if you don't like it, you can always get your old job back. That job that you have right now is for you." That gave me the courage to take that next step forward into sales, and go figure. I'm in sales now, and I love it. And I had this boss, and he would say to me, well, his office was ahead of mine in the building. So when I would come into the building and I'd come into my office, he was over here. And he would always say, "I can hear you and smell you before I see you." And then other people would say, "What's that all about?" He goes, "But that's a good thing." And basically what he meant is that I tend to talk loud so he can hear me. And at that time, I liked to really spritz the perfume so he could smell me before he saw me. Well, anyway, I would just like to say once again, thank you very much for joining me on the Humorous Adventures with Barbara.
It's the Baaaaahbra Show. It's the Baaaaahbra Show. Coming your way with a smile today. Down the humorous path with a lark and a laugh. It's the Baaaaahbra Show. The